So, you want to be a public intellectual. You want to be famous. Look at you and your Britney Spears aspirations, which I love. So you might have a research, you might have a particular perspective, even a cause that you're passionate about. But the moment you step outside of the academy, things are going to get messy.
Yeah, they do. And today we're talking about what happens when scholars go public. And from our own personal experience, potentially, whether that's writing for major media outlets, engaging in social platforms, social media, and all that fun, or speaking out on controversial issues.
So we'll cover the risks, the rewards, and the best ways to engage while keeping your job important, your sanity, and your dignity intact.
Even more important. Not the dignity part, but sanity definitely important.
I mean, who has that? Who has that these days?
Because let's be honest, academia really encourages us to go out there and make an impact, but it doesn't always provide us with the tools and ways of thinking about what happens when you do that and you get a reaction. Suddenly you're in a Twitter fight or someone you don't know responds to you and you're starting arguing about something important or not important. And you're talking about correlation versus causation, and they're misquoting you, and suddenly a piece out of an article you wrote gets isolated and highlighted, and everybody's laughing at you. Or not.
Also, how do you know a rebrand has failed? When you refer to X as Twitter. Failed. And then we need to talk about the institution because some universities love public scholars. It's someone that they can haul out, put on their website, make a big deal about, and frame you as a thought leader. Come here to work with this thought leader. But the double-edged sword of that is the minute you walk into something controversial, they may drop you and all support may go away. Something to be aware of. So if you're new here, this is Not That Kind of Doctor, the show where we tackle the messy realities of academic life. And we try to provide some practical advice. And let's be honest, a little bit of venting, just a smidge of venting.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
At times. I'm Guy. He's Nick. We're both tenured professors here at the University of Nebraska, and we somehow survived the job market, got to keep our job despite all the things that happened along the way. And what our goal is to talk about some of our mistakes and some of our successes and help you try to avoid the mistakes and maybe get some successes along the way.
We're hoping. So whether you're trying to reach policymakers or the general public, or just get your work noticed beyond the usual academic paywall, knowing how to navigate public engagement is just as important as knowing your research.
So let's get into it. Being a public intellectual in 2025 is a challenge. And what's the upside? What are the dangers?
And is it actually worth it? Is that where you want to spend your time?
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
All right.
So I think the first thing that you always want to do is be thinking about the real reason you're engaging as a public intellectual, right? What is it that you want this work to do? Because it is work, right? It's not just showing up on a TikTok and making a video. It's scheduling and scripting and all the things that we do for this show that if you're going the social media route, you have to have some strategy and be thoughtful about it. And sometimes there just isn't time in the day.
Yes, and so thinking about your time is really, really important. We've had a number of
Have we talked about
episodes about time. Yes, we have.
Okay.
And so one of the things I would say right off the bat is time is a commodity that you need to control. So start thinking immediately about how much time do you want to give it, and then stay the rest of the time off, especially social media.
Yes.
So schedule your time, be thoughtful, make sure do not do the tweeting or Xing I can't
That
say
doesn't
that
sound
with
right.
a straight face.
That doesn't sound right.
Or posting on any other social media in the middle of the night. That's really bad for a variety of reasons, including your mental health, but really avoid that.
Well, and I think the way to really avoid that kind of behavior is to really think through what is the function of your engagement, not only with social media, but with newspapers or newsletters, Substacks, whatever it is. And there's a couple of different reasons that you could want to do that. And maybe part of it is you want your work to matter more. You want your work to interface with the public in a way that's not possible in traditional academic publication. That's one of the reasons we started this, was to kind of capture some of the stuff that we had done with our grad students over the years. And then it just kind of exploded from here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
It could be that you're burned out and academia isn't really cutting it. You think about the publish or perish cycle. It takes a long time to gather the data and to process the data and to get the IRB and all of this. And then reviewers send it back and you're like, but I want to make an impact now. And so really engaging with thoughtful scholarship towards the public is a great opportunity to energize. Every time I have a conversation with the public, I just did a presentation to graduate students, which is kind of on the borderline between a public intellectual and an academic at a conference, but it was open and it was full, and I came out energized. So we talked about issues around what I'm right now working on, which is AI, and at the end of that, what is essentially public talk, not about my research, but just about where we are and what we should be thinking about, I had 5 new ideas about things I should be doing in my research to push forward. So it's a way to energize. So if you're feeling a little bit burnt out, that can actually remind you that there is impact in the real world to some of the ideas we're playing with and the data we're collecting and the insights that we have.
Yeah, no, that scope and the temporality of it, because academia can move so slowly.
Yeah.
But when you're engaging in these social media spaces or in-person spaces, it's like peer review in real time. And there's something exciting about that. But also you have to be prepared for that because it is still peer review. You're still going to have a reviewer too who's like, you should have designed your study like that. But I didn't. So what do I do now? What do you got for me instead of wishing my study was something that it's not? Bad peer reviewer too. Bad. So there's also like this notion of, and I don't think we talk about this enough, just overall, but it is perfectly fine. You want to be famous.
Yeah.
I want to support your ambitions.
To be famous.
I want to support your influence or your clout. You're, being a clout chaser. I want to support that. It's not for me. But I will support you in your clout chasing, right? Like,
and when you do that, when you make that decision, I personally think it's not necessarily a bad decision, but you have to think about the implications. The implications, again, I go back to time. There is an implication for time. If you're engaging in all of these conversations, it's going to take time because you've got to prepare for all of them. You've got to be very careful because if you're one of those people, and I'm not right now, but if you're one of those people that NPR or another news outlet calls on a regular basis to make comments about a specific topic, you have to prepare. You don't want to be mumbling or making up things as you go along because it needs to be short, it needs to be to the point. They're going to cut you. And if you're doing interviews, and we recently did a series of pieces about some work we're doing with social media, the journalist will send it back to you for fact-checking. Is this what you said? Is there anything here you disagree with? And you need to read that very carefully because sometimes they will misunderstand. The transcription isn't great. There could be other things. So you've got to also take the time to check it on the back end. Otherwise, you lose control over the narrative.
Yes, you need to pull a Beyonce. Beyonce has a room that is nothing but all of the media about her, and she's got it all indexed. well, I'm not sure that she herself has it
Yeah,
all
I'm sure
indexed,
she
but
has somebody doing it
But
for
like,
her.
you have to be that level of meticulous
Yes.
because things happen. Lucy Calkins, I'm just looking at you, for instance, right? So I actually first encountered you when you were blogging, and I was a young grad student, still didn't have any hair. I was still bald, but I remember reading your blog as a grad student. And so you have this history of engagement in social media, and I would love to know as an academic what is your thinking around how your social media habits have changed in terms of being a clout chaser?
So I think a few things. One is that I try to separate to actually have mostly a professional social media. So one of the things that I had to decide very early, and I learned that very, very early, you do not mix your personal social media with professional social media. If you do want to have political arguments or things that are not about the work you're doing, you should do it under a different in a different channel or somewhere else, because you don't want those two things really mixing up, because it really takes away from the professional message you're sending, and potentially also taking away from the any other kind of persona you want to have online. So I developed what is primarily a professional persona online on most of the outlets. So definitely on Twitter, although I'm not on Twitter anymore. So that's one thing that has changed. But definitely on LinkedIn or on the variety of other things that I'm doing right now online. They're primarily professional. I keep, for example, Facebook for me, my main Facebook page with my name, or not page, but account with my name is my personal one, and I do only personal things. I actually avoid all politics at this point on social media because it's so toxic, and also I don't see the benefit. So that separation is one thing that is important. I track what I'm doing, and I think about this in two ways, and I've gotten better over the years. So when I started out, I tried to be on as many channels as possible. Mm-hmm. So trying to diversify and see, am I capturing different groups at different times? And since then, I've learned that it's just, again, going back to time. It's too much time. I don't have that time. So I focus on a few main channels where I know I can understand what's going on and I can contain it. So for example, we're working with YouTube as a main distribution. We are distributing in other ways, but YouTube is our main distribution. It's my favorite one. Dan here knows that I have a big presence there because you can maintain it, you can control it.
Clout change, sir. Huge.
Yes. So that's one of those things that you can do. And then you have to be really selective about what are the other ones. And my advice is always start with one channel that you think most of the people you want to talk to are there. And then if you're like, I think there's another market there, try another one. But be ready to recede because social media works only if it's a machine or it's a monster. I'm not sure which one. Probably both. But you have to feed it on a regular basis to have people actually get access to your content. So you really want to think about what am I willing to commit to, and commit slowly. Instead of trying everything, start slowly, try to grow, and then realize where it ends. For example, when I was blogging weekly, and I sat down every Sunday morning for half an hour and just wrote. And then when I was done, I was done. That's the beauty of blog, is people have low expectations. And I am happy with that. And it was literally, and I always express them as thoughts in process while thinking about research. Here are some observations and things like that.
Well, and that worked well. That was the thing that drew me to it, actually, was as someone in my doctoral program, I loved how I got a view into your process. It just made me happy. So, so let's shift a little and talk about some of the risks and the realities of public scholarship. One of the trickier things that is out there is thinking about kind of the conflicting nature of social media and academia, because social media loves a hot take.
Yes.
They love a controversy. They love, just the Durham and Strong of things. But academia is more about nuance. And social media is faster. It's not as drawn out. It's not as thorough. It's so you have to be aware of some of those things. And because of that, you're going to get criticized. Like, criticism is going to happen.
And quickly.
Very quickly. Very quickly. And so do you have, one, the thick skin to deal with that? And two, what happens at your institution if that happens? Like, are there policies around that? You'll want to check those out.
Definitely
Right?
check them out. And really, unfortunately, I would say, because I would like to stay on the side of more nuance and not the big splash hot take. But this is traditionally how people switched over from being academics to being public intellectuals, is by staking huge hot takes. And climate science is one of those areas. And that is 99.9% of climate scientists are saying global climate change is real. If you're that 0.1%, you're going to get a lot of attention. Disproportional attention. So yes, you will get a lot of attention, you will get a lot of TV time, but are you willing to stand behind that from an
At
intellectual
what cost?
honesty? Well, at what cost?
Right.
And also, I always start with intellectual honesty. Do I really believe that, or is this just a hot take? And social media encourages the hot take. So you have, again, this is why planned times on social media, like Mondays 10 to 10:30, this is when I'm thinking about what I'm writing it and I'm sending it out, is good. Midnight on a Wednesday, after you taught till 9 p.m., that's probably a really bad time because you're not thinking through, you're not really considering the implications, and the reaction will be there by the time you wake up in the morning. So you want to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, not a good way to wake up. Which brings us to, like, trolls are going to find you, right? Like, there is always going to be someone who is,
Yes.
going to be a jerk.
Yeah.
Right? And oftentimes you don't know who these people are. And quite honestly, should you care? I don't know, but you got to be ready for when that happens. So, for instance, on this channel, someone left a lovely comment of like, when will you like girls? Dude, I'm aware that I am gay. Also, this is not
What we're about.
original material. Be original. Like, come up with something that's actually clever. Come up with something that tickles my brain, but this is not original. And just be ready for that kind of stuff, because not only will
Yes.
people tear apart kind of your ideas, but they'll also kind of tear apart who you are. And you have to be okay with yourself.
And with the fact that somebody will try to sell Bitcoin in the comments.
Right. And so
It's just what there is.
and so think through what those parameters are. Do you
Yes.
engage? Do you not? What's your strategy for that? Because, I mean, I could have blocked that particular message, but I was like, dude, it's on my to-do list right after liking pineapple on pizza, which is never. Because I don't care. I don't care.
And I would definitely advise to really talk to somebody before you get into any kind of a back and forth with, especially with trolls of any kind, because they're not interested in a discussion or in you proving yourself wrong. They are just interested in the act of trolling. And going back to, they are rarely people you will identify or people you will have a discussion with in any other situation.
Right. So they're people you don't care about.
Yes.
Quite honestly, I don't care about that. Like, ooh, you have an opinion on who I am? Shocking. It's like plaid for fall. Oh my gosh. Don't care.
And so there's actually lovely research that came out of, I think, UCLA about the reaction to the Common Core standards, which is really interesting because they did an analysis of who responded and who talked about Common Core. And it was very clear that there were influencers that had no outside of social media persona that was in any way connected to education. So they were not
Interesting.
they were not researchers, they were not teachers, they often were, I mean, maybe parents, but that's their contact with education. So they were fed by misinformation, they were feeding misinformation, they were amplifying misinformation, but none of them were the politicians or anybody who's actually involved in making policy or teaching or administering education. So it was very interesting to find out that these are not the people you would usually have a discussion. It is nice to have discussion and deliver content to a wider public, but that wider public has all kinds of people there. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yes, that reminds me of one challenge that I faced, not on this channel, but on a separate channel, has been around reading instruction. And there's, all these like reading hacks that flip around the internet all the time. Like, be a faster reader. Read at the pace at which you're comfortable, people. Like, just be reading. And so I had constructed a short debunking bionic reading, which is where, every letter gets bolded as you go along and it's supposed to help you read faster, but it actually doesn't.
No.
That's actually counter the research. And it was interesting because it still is on that channel, my most popular short, but it was also the channel when I first posted it. I posted it late at night.
Yeah.
Well, and the negative response was, where's your citations? Dude, that's not a criticism. I have them, and then I posted them. Would you like to discuss? Crickets.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Again, be aware of the trollish behavior. And as an academic online, you're going to be held to a different standard, but the people who are responding to you aren't going to be.
Yeah.
And so now, whenever I do something like that, I just make sure, here are my citations. What you want? What's going on? How's things? And I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yes. So that's a kind of a hot take, but it's a hot take you can stand behind.
I mean, it's not a hot
Solidly.
take. This is what this is, right?
But doing something about a program that is out there will always have a hot take attitude because people have, take on it. Because people have strong opinions, right?
And they'll see it as a personal attack.
Yes. On their choices.
It worked for me. Yes, but you're one person. You might be the anomaly. I'm not actually sure that it worked for you. I think you think it works for you, and therefore that's why you're saying it works for you. However, writ large, here's all the research that says it doesn't work.
So the thing that I think we're saying throughout all of this is make sure that you're making the points that you would make as a researcher, as somebody who knows what they're doing. And that's why I talk about that separation, right? So when we talk about what are some of the best choices you can make, one of them is choose what you want to talk about. Talk about the things you know about. And because this is your research. You start going beyond that and you're starting risking kind of squandering the kind of credit you have as a public intellectual. You want to talk about the things you know. And if that's your research, absolutely talk about it. If it's research you read once 20 years ago, it may not be the best thing for you to talk about right now. And so really being selective, I think about this because I've given testimony before the legislature a few times.
Same.
And by the way, check what your institutional guidelines, but usually they ask you to do it as a private citizen, not as a representative of the institution, so make sure you do that. But when you do that, I always talk about the things I know as a researcher. I have a lot of opinions about other things. I don't present myself then as a public intellectual, just as a citizen. Yeah. Which I can still have an opinion, and I just wrote a couple of things just yesterday about a couple of laws that are out there. But again, I don't write it as a professor at the university. At that moment, I'm just citizen guy saying, this is what I think about this.
Citizen guy, regular clout chaser.
Yes.
Versus Dr. Guy Trainin, professional clout chaser.
Yes.
I like it.
Exactly. All right. So what else do we need to know before you make the decision to kind of jump into?
Well, there's a couple of, I want to touch back on your notion of dividing, right?
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about wise engagement as a public intellectual, knowing your audience is important. Are you
Absolutely.
talking to other academics? Are you talking to who is your audience? Like, we have so many discussions about who our audience is, who we'd like our audience to be, and stick with that.
Yes.
If you're talking to the everyday person, you have to frame things differently because you're working on translation research into everyday. So like trying to explain kinetic and static reversals
That's
to a
not
mom in Utah is a very different thing
Yes.
from talking about it in research. And you want to make sure that you are setting those boundaries because this is going to be one more thing on top of everything else. Is it valued in your tenure process? What are your institution policies around it, et cetera, et cetera. But develop a public persona, right? Like, to go back to Beyonce, who's your Sasha Fierce? You know?
Explain.
So Beyonce's album, wow, I'm diving deep. Beyonce's album, I Am Sasha Fierce, referenced her onstage persona. In her real life, she is Beyonce. Fabulous, iconic. But on stage, she's Sasha Fierce.
Okay.
Even more fabulous, even more iconic. And it helps separate that notion of here's who I am as a person.
And who's
and here's the version of me that I'm willing to share with other people. And what that allows you to do is to think through the boundaries of your social media and how that works. And again, people are going to comment on weird things, right? So you have to make sure you're able to set boundaries, and that alter ego makes it a little bit easier to do that public persona.
Yes, absolutely. Who is the performer versus who are you as a private citizen are two different things, and that helps organize what you're going to say and what you're not going to say. All right.
Exactly. So I think that about wraps us up.
Yeah, it does.
That was exciting. So public engagement really can be one of the most rewarding parts of an academic career, but it's also a space where you want to keep in mind that things can go sideways really fast. The key is knowing why you're doing it. What's the reason that you feel engaged in this kind of work? What risks are you willing to take? And where are you going to set those boundaries?
And to add to that, what does your institution ask you to do or not to do? Whether you're sharing your research with a broader audience or pushing back against misinformation or just looking for ways to stay engaged and get some feedback on the work you're doing, engaged public scholarship should be a choice and not an obligation. And you want to think carefully through that choice, especially early in your career.
Yeah, it shouldn't be an obligation. So if you're feeling the pressure to be a public intellectual, to be tweeting, I can't say Xing. That just makes no sense to me. I'm not doing it. That's the kind of energy I've got in 2025. Don't feel like you have to do it. Be clear about what your terms of engagement are, because it's going to take up time. It's going to take up energy, and that's going to have to come from somewhere. And so you want to be clear about what you actually want to do. Not everyone needs a byline in the Atlantic or a YouTube channel or, a Blue Sky account. Do what's valuable to you, what you see as pushing your work forward. Be sure about your terms. Understand your terms of engagement.
So we'd love to hear from you. How are you engaged in this kind of discourse? What's worked? What backfired? And what lessons have you learned from all of that?
And so with that, thanks for watching Not That Kind of Doctor. Until next time, keep questioning, keep engaging, and remember that we need to not feed the trolls. Trolls are bad. We don't care. Get a hobby. But their trolling is their hobby, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why couldn't they take up knitting? Trolls, knit, or embroider, or crochet. Isn't that what the young people are doing these days?
Crochet.
I don't know. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Thanks Thanks for watching. Not that kind of doctor.
We appreciate you and your time and your dedication to the work that you are trying to do.
So, like,
And subscribe and watch other videos here.